Pecha Kucha 149, all new X-Men. I did read something else this week, but it was an actual book, and it's convoluted. And I think this is all the convolution we need for 1 week. The premise of All New X-Men is what happens if you dump the 60s X-Men, slap bang into the current continuity, whatever the hell that is. This is the 2013 continuity, so All New X-Men is 6 years old. I've been reading a fair amount of Bendis books that haven't sucked recently. This is one of those books. It's a very interesting premise, too interesting. And it starts with Beast basically dying, and because he's like one of the top 3 smartest dudes in the Marvel universe, there's really no one he can turn to because Reed Richards isn't answering his phone. No, seriously, that's how that plot works out. And he will be doing some crazy things as he tries to leave the world better off. But we have teenagers doing teen angsty stuff. Someone gets stressed, and it turns out they have a mutant power to stop time, which is the next spread, which I couldn't fit in. But this is the first time, I think, in the Marvel Universe for a while there have been new mutants showing up, and Cyclops, Magneto, and Emma Frost, the White Queen, are going around trying to recruit them to protect them from the overt racism that is very obvious in this book. Although technically Cyclops is positioned as the bad guy because he's no longer with the X-Men. And there's this one bit where this young black kid has a mutant power where he can apparently heal people, and he's in an interrogation room, and the cop says to him, "You look like a mutant," and he goes, "What the hell does that mean?" And it's like, this is the level of racism in here, so you can kind of see why Cyclops is trying to protect these kids from humans, quote unquote. So back to Beast, he decides that he doesn't like what Cyclops is doing, blah, blah, blah. He decides to go back in time and take Bobby Drake's idea of having the 60s Cyclops look current Cyclops in the eye, no pun intended, to show him how far he's fallen from the idealist he used to be. So the 60s X-Men show up in the new Jean Grey school that Wolverine is the headmaster of, and he's like, this is bullshit, tries to kill them, doesn't work. Jean Grey is very powerful, even though she shouldn't even have half of the powers she has. That's one of the things about this. Cyclops, current day Cyclops, decides he's going to set up in the Weapon X lab where they made Wolverine famous, quote unquote. Which is an interesting little aside because it's like, is he aware of the irony of this? I mean, he knows what it is. He's the guy who's explaining it. And I guess it must be a flashback to when Cyclops frees Emma Frost from incarceration. And they talk about recent events where the Dark Phoenix controlled both Frost and Summers. And they did very, very evil, bad things. And Professor Xavier ended up dead. And then new X-Men meet old X-Men. It's up to you what I mean by who's old and who's new. And Cyclops, current day Cyclops' response is very interesting. It's Bendis' writing that's good because he runs through all of the tactical options and how this could be fake, and ultimately decides he is looking at the original X-Men from the 60s. And is none too pleased. And all the way through this book, the artwork is just phenomenal and does a really good job of carrying everything across. Great composition, great colouring. Jean Grey isn't supposed to be able to read minds at this point in her career, but she's been told she can, and then it turns out she starts doing it unintentionally. She reads the mind of current day Scott Summers, freaks the fuck out because he's having 20 odd years of life regrets in her face seeing her because current day Jean Grey is dead. New Beast and Old Beast are in his head using Jean Grey as a medium to try and figure out how to save his life, and they do figure it out when young Beast points out that Old Beast's fucked up his maths. How he's smarter than the guy with 20 years additional knowledge, I don't know. But then Jean Grey reads the mind of Old Beast and basically has to have 50 years worth of life experiences slammed into her face. Why is her face fucked up? Water damage prevents me from pulling the spread apart without damaging the cover. the comic. So yeah, Jean's not having a good time. Wolverine postulates if he kills young Cyclops, he will kill old Cyclops, and then this raises the whole issue of what level of time travel are we dealing with? Is the butterfly effect in effect? Is this multiverse theory? All that stuff. We have a new mutation for Beast, old Beast, who now survives. So even though this was all triggered by Beast dying and wanting to leave a legacy, he's not going to die because comic books. The young X-Men take a vote to stay in this timeline because this is obviously too interesting a well to not dig from an editorial point of view. And young Jean Grey and young Cyclops have a falling out because Jean Grey now knows all of the evils that Cyclops will commit, which do involve him being mind merged to Apocalypse, which might be one of the reasons he has a very different perspective. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's a very interesting premise. Bendis has introduced it, and it's it's got all the things you want from X-Men: teen angst, superpowers, and it could get very good, but I fear that this will run its course when the next team comes along and screws up the way too many moving parts. So, sad clown of the week is the NHS, because all they're good for right now is being the butt of jokes. I can't get them to diagnose whatever my hand problem is. And that other book I read was a speculative book about what my hand problems might be about. And there's more knowledge in that book than I've been able to get out of 2 or 3 doctors in the last 2 or 3 weeks, to the point where the NHS have told me to just talk to my employer about ergonomic improvements at work, but that's not the problem. The problem is I have a hand problem, not that my workstation at work is shit. My workstation at home was shit, and then I fixed it and my problems got a lot better, but the underlying causes are still there. You need to treat the cause, not the symptoms, but it's best to treat both, and to do that you need a goddamn diagnosis, goddammit. But anyway, all new X-Men. I'll be looking out for more. I want to see how they fuck this up, because there's a reason Western comic books keep resetting the canon, and it's things like this. This is why House of M fucking happened. But that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 149, and I will see you next time.